Well, hello, folks. Sheepdog Smokey here, and this one is a bit different than my normal because I'm getting back to a topic, or at least a style, that I want to be able to do. Today we're discussing martial law, and it is somewhat in response to some social media and news postings I've seen, but I'm not going to be looking at those as in how people are talking about it, how people are reacting, and things like that. This is just what is martial law. What does it mean? What does it require? All of those type of things. Before we dive in, as always, please remember to subscribe, turn on notifications so you're aware of everything, pardon me, and so that you are part of the giveaway at 500, 1,000, and 1,500 subscribers. All that said, let's go on and dive right in. The first thing to consider is what is martial law. Now, martial law, very simply, is when the law is administered by the military. It is pretty much government running every aspect of law enforcement, of detention, corrections, judicial, everything. What is not known is that martial law, that term, as well as what it really means, is not actually defined anywhere in the Constitution because it is not concrete enough in my mind. Governors can declare martial law for their state, and the president can declare martial law for the country. Now, that said, martial law is very, very vague in that what it really does is it suspends habeas corpus. Habeas corpus literally translates to you have the body. It is a legal term meaning that someone who has been detained is to be brought before a judge for trial, for indictment, for bail hearing, what have you. When you are arrested by LAPD, NYPD, Fort Worth PD, Chicago PD, doesn't matter. They have an obligation to bring you before a judge within a certain time period. It is not instant because, of course, if you're brought into jail 11:45 on a Friday night, 2 o'clock on a Saturday morning for DUI, drunk and disorderly, whatever, you may not see a judge until Monday morning. I know when I was working for the Sheriff's Department that there were judges on rotation to be called, if needed, during times when court was not in session. We rarely did it. It was understood that if you're arrested after the court is done with business on Friday, they will see you first thing on Monday for arraignment and so on. The district attorney will be ready and you'll be arraigned, you'll be officially charged, so on and so forth. The only thing in the Constitution is Article 1, Section 9. The privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless when in cases of rebellion or invasion the public safety may require it. No bill of attainder or ex post facto law shall be passed. No capitation or other direct tax shall be laid unless in proportion to the census or enumeration herein before directed to be taken. From there it goes into taxes. Basically what it says, and I know for a fact Abraham Lincoln did suspend habeas corpus during the Civil War. This was a time, technically, of both rebellion and invasion. Confederate troops did cross into Union territory. Union troops did cross into Confederate territory. We were at war for 5 years with ourselves. Technically two separate countries. The South fully seceded from the Union, formed their own sovereign nation. It ultimately failed because they lost the war. What's less commonly known is that there was a case where Confederate soldiers who had been detained basically indefinitely during the suspension of habeas corpus brought their case to the U.S. Supreme Court and won. So while yes, the president can suspend habeas corpus, or the governors in their states can suspend habeas corpus, that doesn't mean that you're just screwed. What it would mean is that you would have the military patrolling the streets in assistance of local law enforcement, county and state. They're not able to take over in every jurisdiction of the country. What would happen is you would have ultimate command vested in military personnel at several locations across the country, and police, instead of reporting to their chief and stopping there, the chief would report to a county personnel, who would report to a state personnel, who would report to the military person over them, because the military would be responsible for administering the law. And administering the law is enforcing it on the street, it is arresting people when they violate it, it is detaining them, it is charging them, it is trying them, it is sentencing them, every aspect of administration of the law. I don't see this happening because we are not in a state of rebellion or invasion, at least not in most places. There is what I would call rebellion in Portland when the Antifa thugs in masks go out beating people bloody over a hat. If I were in Jay Inslee's position, I would have labeled them a domestic terrorist organization. I would have directed my state police to keep the peace, or the National Guard would be brought in to do what the state police cannot. Unfortunately, Jay Inslee is a liberal Democrat who doesn't really care that Oregonians who are conservative are having their freedom to just move about the state trampled on by thugs. But you see, that would require Jay Inslee to, well, actually, I think Jay Inslee is Washington. I don't know who the governor of Oregon is. But let's look at Seattle because it's happened there. Jay Inslee would have to act. It would require a rebellion on a national scale, which is a significant portion of the country in rebellion. For the Civil War, it was roughly half of the country before Lincoln suspended habeas corpus within the United States. And that allowed his military to basically, if they captured Confederate soldiers, you sat until it was decided to let you go before a judge. It's very similar to how arrest and detention works in Great Britain. You are detained at the pleasure of the king or queen, whoever is reigning monarch right now. You would be detained at the pleasure of Her Majesty. That could mean you vanish into an isolation cell. You may or may not be fed quality food. You may or may not see a doctor. You may or may not be heard from for months or years on end. Kind of how it works in Mexico. We can find story after story of people who are American citizens arrested in Mexico, and they vanish into a Tijuana jail or a Acuna jail or whatever. They're not heard from for months. And it basically takes the U.S. government saying, do we need to send someone to pick up our citizens who have not violated your law or our law or international law? And then only when there is the threat of basically the U.S. sending someone to liberate our citizen do they capitulate. And back to it, I don't see it happening, for one, because we're not in a state of rebellion. I would not even say we're in a state of invasion, even with the numbers of illegal aliens in this country and the number that still cross every day, week, and month across our southern border and from other points. It wouldn't work because invasion, in the sense of the Constitution, is being invaded by a foreign power for the purposes of making war. Look at the movie Red Dawn. I prefer the older movie, honestly, although some prefer the newer one. But basically, this is an Asiatic nation invading the West Coast. In the older version, it actually, I believe, extended all the way to Colorado. In the newer version, it pretty much is reserved to Washington and Oregon. But it is an Asian force invading the U.S. on the western coast with the intent of taking the country. That would be invasion, okay? Say Iran or Iraq or Syria or any of the nations we know hate us with a passion, sent official military people or even terrorist organizations sponsored by that country to invade and kill and torture and subjugate the country. That would be invasion. And that's not happening. Rebellion is not happening on a scale anywhere near a fraction of the scale needed to declare martial law. That's why the order in, I forget what state it was, to, suspend the election, that's why the judge overturned it, because there's no legal ground to do that. You cannot say you may have no voice in the government. We're just going to continue as we are. There will be no election. You can't do that. Even under habeas corpus, you cannot do that. Article 1, Section 9 suspends habeas corpus. If you are not violating the law, then you may not be taken, because you must violate the law to be arrested. During the 1860s, Confederate soldiers were violating U.S. law because the U.S. had declared that secession was not legal, so the southern states were in a state of rebellion. Union soldiers then administered the law. These posts that you're seeing are emotion-driven, in some cases driven by people who don't know what they're talking about. In many cases where people are moaning and wailing and gnashing their teeth, Trump is going to declare martial law and not allow us to vote. He'll be president forever. Won't happen. Gorsuch and Kavanaugh would overturn that. Okay? The most conservative judge you can find on any bench in this country would say, no, Mr. President, you cannot suspend the federal election in November. It's just not going to happen. President Trump's also not going to do that. And these people are doing this, one, out of ignorance. It's people like Milano or, Tom Arnold or the rest who are truly ignorant of the truth. Or they're doing it to rile people up, to garner people into their mob, to demand power be handed to them. This is the Maxine Waters, Nancy Pelosi, Feinstein, Boxer, Warren, Schumer, Sanders, Harris, Nadler, Clinton. Millions are going to die. No, they haven't. It's been 3 years. Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump will put us into World War III within months. We've had almost 4 years. No World War III. Terrorists are on the run or dead. It is a lie, purposefully used to basically get people to vote how the candidate wants, not how the voter wants. Had Barack Obama campaigned in 2009, yeah, I'm going to raise your taxes and I'm going to strip away health care and I'm going to make it what I want. I'm going to drone strike whoever I want. He would have not gotten 30% of the vote. But he campaigned on Romney and Ryan and McCain and Palin both times. Well, these are just racists. They don't like me because I'm black. No, Mr. Obama. They were Republican. You are Democrat. You were quite literally saying anybody who runs against me is evil. And that's not true. It's done to fool people into obeying those who care nothing about them. Article 1, Section 9, U.S. Constitution. I've got about 800 of them sitting right over there somewhere. If you want one, I'll try and get one to you. These are printed. I think I actually covered it up. But these are printed by a group, National Center for Constitutional Studies. They're not a political organization. Pretty sure I could walk into their offices and find liberals, conservatives, middle of the road, libertarian, originalists, constitutionalists. They don't care when it comes to providing these copies. I have compared this book, which I ordered several hundred of, as I said, to the actual physical copy that is in the Library of Congress. Not in person, of course, but their copy that they have online, where it is an image that has been basically just kept from falling apart after 240 some odd years. So I've compared it. I have found nothing different. Declaration of Independence is in here. Bill of Rights is in here. Yes, I did put a sticker on the bottom. It leads to cosaction.com, which is just our group that says we need term limits, fiscal responsibility, and whatever this thing says, that's what the Constitution means. But it will cost me, I believe, 50 cents. Well, that and an envelope, so we'll say, it cost me 80 cents. I've got about 30 stamps in my drawer. I've got envelopes. I've got a truck. Once a week I go into town for groceries. I could easily pull through the post office, just shove a bunch of envelopes right into that mailbox right outside, never get out of my truck. Be happy to send one. The more people that have this book available to them, the more people who will ultimately realize that the Democrats and their lapdogs in the media, and quite a few on the Republican side who are not true Republicans, but they have that word by their name, are not working for your best interest. I've asked this on social media. I've asked it in person. I've asked it of a lot of people. I think I've asked it on this channel. How many rights are in the First Amendment? It's right there. If that wasn't long enough, I'll tell you. There are 5 rights enumerated in the First Amendment. Freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of the press. Those are the 3 everybody always gets. But you also have freedom of assembly, the right to peaceably assemble, and the right to petition for redress of grievances. Those last 2, people forget about. If you haven't read this book, this document, you would believe that the First Amendment stops at freedom of the press. But it goes on, nor the right to, or I'm not sure how it's worded. Let's actually read it. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Right there. Something that plays into this topic, though, martial law. If the military is going to be running the law all over the country, and they were truly going to be everywhere, boots on the ground at every street corner, like these idiots pushing these idiotic theories say, where would they sleep? Article 3, or Amendment 3, no soldier shall, in time of peace, be quartered in any house, without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. So they would literally have to pass a law stating, you have no right to your home, we're going to send soldiers wherever we want. It would have to pass both houses. It would have to pass the president's desk. It would then have to stand up to challenge after challenge after challenge in every level of the federal court, all the way up to the Supreme Court. And it will ultimately fall, if it passes all of those others, at the Supreme Court because of Amendment 3. The point of all this is when you see these posts, Trump's going to declare martial law and you won't get to vote. We need to tell him no. Not going to happen. Can't happen. When they say Trump's going to declare a war, this document says Congress must declare war, not the president. That's why it was not the Vietnam War officially. That's why it was also not the Gulf War. They were police actions. Because Congress never officially declared war on Vietnam or Iraq, Saudi Arabia, any of them. A little bit. I mean, it took me about maybe 2 minutes of scanning Article 1 to get to Section 9 and then see the words habeas corpus. And remember from my own studies about the Civil War and Lincoln's justification of the suspending of habeas corpus, because in all respects, according to the United States government, the Union, the South was not a foreign nation. They were in a state of rebellion. That let me remember right then and there. Article 1, Section 9 is what defines martial law. Martial law literally means only that habeas corpus is suspended. That's it. Doesn't mean anything else. And the president can't just on a whim declare martial law. And Donald Trump is not going to try to do it. Donald Trump is not the one trying in certain states to prevent elections. Those would be Democrats doing that. I've talked long enough, though. Let me know what you think. As always, remain civil. If any of the brainless celebrity twits I've mentioned, or the brainless politician twits I've mentioned show up, as always, I won't be vulgar, but I will be very bluntly honest. If you want a copy, look at the description. I will be happy to send one to everyone I'm able to. We all know right now we're all a little more strapped for cash than normal. But I can handle a few bucks a week. It might take me a while to get them all out, but I can handle a few bucks a week. Like I said, I have envelopes. I think I've got about 100 of them. And I have a few stamps. So I would not mind at all sending them to you. And I will be happy to tell you if I hit a point where I can't do it for a while, if I run out of envelopes, run out of stamps, whatever, I'll tell you. And what I will tell you there is, I can't do it right now, but you're on the list and you will get one when I'm able. But, got off topic there. As always, remain civil. We can disagree civilly because we are logical thinking adults. We're not celebrities, and we're not politicians. We still have the power to use our brain. We're also able to discuss things like adults. As always, please like and share the video. That expands the conversation, and it helps grow the channel. Please also remember to subscribe and turn on notifications. That way you are aware of all new content as it posts, and you're part of the giveaway at 500, 1,000, and 1,500 subscribers. I will be keeping track, just so you know, because it was always my intent to include one of these with whoever won the 1, 2, or 3 books. I'm not willing to let the media or some idiot celebrity sitting in a mansion living extremely comfortably, still eating their high-dollar meals while I'm eating eggs and grilled cheese, which I don't mind. They're good, but it's old after a few days. I'm not willing to let them throw me into a frenzy and throw me into a panic because I know they're wrong. I know they are all wrong. Remember that. Until next time, stay safe, stay smart, stay healthy, stay home if you can. If you can't, be careful. Until next time, everyone, have a wonderful day.